Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 16 millimeter film crew. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Dale.
You can watch us on YouTube. You can like and comment on our YouTube videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us everywhere podcasts are found at 16 millimeter Film Crew Podcast. Leave us a rate and review. And visit us on our website at www.16millimeterfilmcrew.com. This week, we watched Joker Folie A Deux, directed by Todd Phillips. Struggling with his dual identity, failed comedian Arthur Fleck meets the love of his life, Harley Quinn, while incarcerated at Arkham State Hospital. This movie stars Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, Zazie Beetz, Brendan Gleeson, and Catherine Keener. So there's a lot to talk about here. So
Yeah.
let's just jump right in, Dale.
I'll be honest, I actually liked it a lot better than I expected. Um, but I had to reckon with this movie is more about the primary focus tends to be on this movie more on Lady Gaga and her character of this version of Harley Quinn as the driving impetus and driving force of the movie for the most part due to her interactions with Arthur Fleck, which I think is kind of giving away the name. I thought like this is being an ignorant American. I didn't really think much about the thing Folie à Deux. I saw a deux and I said, "Oh, that's two." All right, Joker Part Two. It flew over my head. It wasn't until I looked up what Folie à Deux is. It's basically like a shared delusional disorder where people impose and become dependent on one another. It is kind of like what Harley Quinn does to Joker. It's kind of giving away the title that she is the one who able to influence him to do what she wants him to do in a way. Um, I also feel like a lot of the bad news about this movie being bad tends to also be for American audiences who really don't like musicals unless they're prepared to watch a musical. Unless you're blatantly telling them this movie is going to be a musical, they tend to avoid musicals for the most part. So when they go to watch Joker and they're expecting what they saw for the first one and then they get a musical, they're going to be off put by it. So
Yes, the title of my notes is Why is everyone so mad at Joker? Because I really didn't understand it.
yeah.
Um, I watched the movie and I thought it was fine. Like, I don't know. I really had to like look at other people's reviews to see like what was the issue because I couldn't really understand like why, even before I went to go see it, the reviews were so bad. And so I watched the movie and I was waiting for things to get bad. And I was just like, am I missing something? I don't know. I felt like I was being gaslit
Yeah.
by everyone who was just like, this movie is so terrible. And then I would watch the reviews and they were like, it's not the worst thing ever, but like, why didn't we know it was a musical? Or like, this story went nowhere. We learned no new information about him. Like, it's so boring. Like, that's why everyone was like
Yeah.
review bombing it because they were bored. I was not personally, but like, I don't know. It's a very strange, whatever's happening right now, they're just because I was talking about this with my friend. Like, there seems to be like a very strong disconnect between like how audience might have seen this movie versus how critics are representing it.
hmm
And I don't know exactly what that disconnect is, like even right now, because I'm just like, we've seen some trash
Yeah.
movies, like we've seen some utter garbage. And I'm like, this is definitely not that. Like, is it the best movie I've seen this year? No. Is it
No.
better than the first Joker? No.
No.
But it's not terrible. So I was just really confused on like why everyone was so particularly upset about this particular movie. We've seen a lot of comic book sequels, prequels, like some of them have not been good at all. And I don't think that the reception was ever this harsh, or maybe it was. I'm just like misremembering, but I don't know. I watched it like I knew it was going to be a musical. I feel like most people who criticize it also knew it was going to be a musical. So like it's not like it was technically a surprise. And I don't like musicals. Like
Yeah.
I've talked about this many times on this channel. I don't like musicals, but I thought the music was fine. Like I think Lady Gaga's voice held most of it down. There were too many songs. I'll give you that. There was way too many songs. We could have cut a whole bunch of songs out of there.
Yeah.
but Gaga ate down. Like she sang wonderfully. So like there was no complaint when I was listening to it. I was like, her voice is so good. And I think that how like what it was representing in terms of these people's like true mental illness, like I was like, that's an interesting way to represent that. So I was like, okay, like, is it great? No, but like I'm not miserable. Like I'm not having a terrible time. I
Yeah,
thought that it was a much more like indie kind of like we're really looking into the mind of this man who was just like severely mentally ill, like narcissistic. Unfortunately, he's violent because like that's been his background, like his growing up and like his experiences have been violent. So he is perpetuating that cycle. Um, and like trying to understand like what's going on in his mind and the fact that he's just like desperately needs to be loved and like it wants to be loved by someone.
yeah,
It was just I was like, okay, this is an interesting way to take it, but I feel like some people felt like it was not good because it was trying to be a courtroom drama and also a musical, and they didn't do either one of those things well, or they just didn't like it because we didn't learn any new information about the character, and so it felt like a pointless movie. Um, to the first, I would say maybe like was it a compelling courtroom drama? No. Like I don't think like it was well written in terms of like we've seen great courtroom dramas. Anatomy of a Fall is a great example of like a wonderful courtroom drama. But like it wasn't terrible. Like there were some really good moments in there. So I was like, okay, fine. And then was it a good musical? I mean, Joaquin Phoenix's voice is fine. Like it's not amazing, but like it did a serviceable job. I think you're really there just for Lady Gaga. Like that was honestly most of Gaga stuff was just like singing.
mhm,
Um, and I think people had an issue with that as well. I think that her performance was great. So like I'm not even gonna try to be like, oh, all she did was sing. Cause like, no. She did a really good performance in this role. So I wanted to know more about her. I wish we got some more of that.
yeah,
There were definitely missed opportunities, but I just think overall, like the hate that this movie has gotten is very strange to me. Like I really feel like I'm missing something. Like I can't see what you guys are seeing.
yeah. Same, 100%. Like my only thing, like I think people in this movie, like Joker is one of those characters in comic books who, for comic book and cartoon interpretation, is very black and white. He's like, I just want chaos, and that's
Hmm.
it. Whereas when it comes into the film part, even if it's Nolan's Batman, it's fucking Jack Nicholson's portrayal of it in the earlier Batman movies. Like the movies always try to have to add something to him, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Um, with this movie, like, and this has been an ongoing argument. Like, I had to explain to somebody, like, the ending, like, somehow it went viral from explaining the ending of the movie, where he's
Hmm.
of the first one, where he's on the bus being taken to prison, and they're like, oh, he's happy now because he's caused chaos in the world. And I was like, no, if you watch the movie, and this movie also explains it more. His issue is loneliness, is the attention. Like he's smiling now because he thinks people finally notice him, which
Hmm.
carries over into this movie. This movie is not like it's not going to give you any new information about the character. We've learned all there is to learn about him in the first movie, point
Hmm.
blank period. This movie is more so just a continuation of those issues. Like all through the court trial, like his attachment Lady Gaga's character goes, "Oh, you're finally noticing me." Like he cares about the attention more so than the actual lawyer who's like, "Oh, I'm trying to get you actual help. Like you might not care for what I'm doing, trying to get you the help you need, but I'm doing the right thing for you." And he was like, "I don't care what you think. People are paying attention to me, and that's all I really care about." And that's the continuation of this character arc. And I think that's also part of why people don't like it. They wanted more of what they got in the first movie. But I also do think this issue with this movie goes back to a lot of Todd Phillips's issues to me as a director. Like if you
Hmm.
look at his filmography, his strength is really comedies and stuff like that. Like the first Joker movie is really him out on his own, really doing a psychological thriller, a new genre. Only time he's involved at projects that go outside the comedy realm, All the King's Men, he's just a producer on there. That movie's directed by uh Steve Zahlen, he's not involved in the screenplay or anything. He's just producer. Then we go to another musical starring Lady Gaga. Uh, All the Stars Are Born. I'm probably butchering the title of that movie. No, A Star Is Born. That is also a remake that was remade like three times or two times, but he's also just producer. He's not director. So when he has to pivot out of that comedy route, like this reminds me of when with the Thor movies, with the last two, Taika Waititi. Like everybody Love and Thunder, you know, perfect, blah 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 blah. Oh no, Ragnarok. Everybody's like, oh, everybody loves it. And then with Ragnarok, he goes, oh, I'm gonna go full 100 because I liked me when I gave him a little bit, and now I'm gonna give him everything. And people were not prepared for it. I think that movie and this movie, as far as their reactions, that's why people are unprepared when a director finally goes 100% into a genre that they're unprepared for.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes to comic book movies, particularly, um, taking risk and taking like big swings is always a little like
Hmm.
it's hit or miss. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you can get it right and sometimes you can't. Like I feel like Joker, the first one was a big risk.
Yeah.
Like to present that character in such a like stark way and give more information. I don't know. I'm not a comic book reader, so I'm not really sure what if his background has ever been like fully explored before. But like just from a viewer's point of view, person who like, watched the Nolan films and everything, like fleshing out villains or anti-heroes is always risky because you don't want to give too much away sometimes because then it kind of dilutes what I don't know, made them interesting, which is like the fact that maybe you just don't know that much about them. So they can kind of
They're
project
malleable.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it was a risk to try to tell his backstory. And it was a risk that it was like a rated R movie and that Joaquin had, done everything that he had done to bring out that kind of performance. And it worked. Like and it worked in ways that kind of were either positive or very negative. I feel like it created a very weird kind of we live in a society in cell culture. I mean, that was
Yeah.
probably already there, but it gave some type of light to that, which is not a great thing. So, like, it didn't, I think some people got the message and some people didn't.
Hmm.
But I think that this film, it wasn't giving too much away because, again, it was really reflecting what had happened in the first one.
Yes.
And I think that if it was marketed as like a part one and part two, I don't think people would be so upset.
Hmm.
Because if it did like a Dune thing where it's just like we're not telling like you a new story, we're just telling you the same story, but you're just getting a little bit more in this one than you got in the first one. I think maybe people's expectations wouldn't be so like
Yeah.
um defined. It's just like this is just a continuation of what we had already presented. But I also think that Todd Phillips is, he's an interesting director. Like I think he takes the work very seriously, which is fair.
Yeah.
You should. But I think that like sometimes the self-seriousness does come through and then it ends up not saying much. I think that's
Hmm.
one of the issues that people really had was that it just wasn't really saying anything about anything. And I don't know if I agree with that totally. I feel like what this movie did was it said, okay, this is how the people in Gotham have reacted to this Joker character, but also in real life, this is how people are reacting to Joker. The meme of him dancing down the stairs, like all of it, it's become very
Meta.
meme, yeah, memefiable. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm creating it now. And I think that people probably missed, like I said before, the message of the film, which is like this guy he's not who you think he is. He's not like trying to like blow everything up and start everything again. Like he's not some type of revolutionary. Like he is just a guy who is suffering deeply. Like that is who he is. And I think that at the end of the film, that's what he comes to terms with. It's like I'm not really doing anything to like move things forward. Like everything is still super corrupt. I think a lot of the stuff in Arkham, especially, was like a huge pointer to that of like the system is still corrupt. Like, and even in my defiance of not even trying to be defiant, but just being like taking up my upset with this talk show host and killing him live on camera, like whatever that sparked, it's not sparking anything lasting. Like everything is just messed up. So I'm not actually this Joker character, I'm Arthur.
Yeah,
And I don't want to do this anymore. And that's why Lady Gaga leaves him. Like that's why I think he ends up dying. I think there's a lot wrapped up in just like not being your alter ego and just understanding like this is just what I am. Like, like he said earlier, like he's not trying to get better
yeah,
because that wasn't his goal. And I think that like that is interesting to me. It's interesting to me how he had to like confront his own celebrity in a way that didn't actually make him feel all that better.
yeah.
Um, and like it didn't get him what he wanted. Like he's not free of anything.
Mm,
Like he's stuck there.
yeah,
So I think that that was an interesting to me that was interesting. I think that that said something about I don't know, maybe people who are just like trying to be little rebels and like not really understanding how things work and so they get disappointed because it's not like shaking out the way they wanted it to. But also it's also like an ego thing. Like I need to feel important.
yeah,
So I think it did in something I think that was an interesting kind of case study. Was it too long? Yes, of course it was, because why are all these movies over 2 hours? But like, I thought it had something to say. I related to it in some way, not like
yeah,
fully, but just like in like, okay, like I get this, like I get how we ended up here. So yeah, I guess I'm not mad at what it was trying to do, even though like, yes, it had a lot of things that could have done better. I just don't think it was a flop.
yeah. Like, I also think like what you hit the nail on the head, like, is when he has a recollection, like, oh, I actually need help. I can no
Mhm.
longer maintain the facade of being the person you want to be. Like, as me, like, I'm very outspoken when I have of my mental issues. Like, that's also kind of when I know when I'm in these moments of crises, how I reconcile it with myself. Like, my favorite scene, which kind of sums up when I'm dealing with those kind of things, is from I think it was Casino Royale, where James Bond is like in the shower depressed and he's kind of like, oh, I have no armor left. Like that's how I view like those breakdowns processing in my head. And I like the fact that he recognizes, oh, I cannot be this person that you guys want me to be because I really can't. I mentally cannot do it. I actually need help. And I think it also delves into a bit of stan culture in a way, just like Donald Glover did with Swarm, dealing with stan culture. Lady Gaga is basically a phonetic fan. Like I'm going to self-admit myself into a psychiatric hospital just so I can see you. I'm going to lie just to get close to you. And when now that you have also realized, oh, that you're not the person that everybody thinks you are, I'm no longer a fan of yours. I'm casting you by the wayside. And that happens a lot with people. They edify these celebrities and have fictionalized versions. Oh, this person's like this person's like that. And once that image is shattered, they've lost complete interest in that
Yeah.
celebrity as well.
That's so true. And that's exactly what happens. You know, the lawyer warns him that that's what's going to happen, and then it happens. And I just feel like, yeah, that's such a direct commentary on like what is happening right now. And I think that, so yeah, I just feel like the argument, like there is no point to this or it has nothing to say, I just don't think that that stands when you look at it. I feel
Mm.
like it's actually saying quite a
Quite a lot.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to say. Maybe it just didn't come in the packaging, maybe that you wanted it to come into, which is fair. Like I do have an issue with studios like not marketing things correctly. I feel
Hmm.
like if you were not in the know, like when this script came out that it was going to be a musical and you thought that you were just going to see like the Joker, the first one, but just this is the second one, this is the follow-up, and you had no idea that it was going to be a musical, really, yeah, you would feel duped. Because it's like they were trying to like not really say it when they were doing the interviews. And I feel like if they were just upfront, things probably wouldn't would have went down. I'm not saying better, but at least differently. Um, and maybe people just thought they would explore the worlds more, and we were just kind of in Arkham and in the courthouse, and I think that pissed people off as well. So I don't know. I feel like it's an interesting way of like rolling out a film. I feel like there was just some things that needed to be tweaked. Now, I don't know if that would have changed how people received it overall, like after they went to go see it. But I do think that at least people would have a little bit more knowledge of like what they were walking into
Mm,
because it is a musical. Like people are singing. So it's like, you know, it, that is just what it is. However, I do feel like in terms of all the technical aspects, I thought that the cinematography was gorgeous. Everything looked fantastic. I loved it. Like, were there some shots that were just artsy fartsy just to be artsy fartsy? Yeah. But like the cinematography was really good and the performances were great. Like Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor. He did his thing in this the same way he did in the Joker, the first one. Like Lady Gaga is a great actor. She ate this role. Like, and I liked that it was a much more subtle and less kind of outlandish and like really brash the way Margot Robbie plays the character. I felt like this character was a lot more down to earth, a lot more realistic. Still not all well up there. Like she's not playing with the full deck, but like I think that's a part of the character anyway. So like, yeah, I liked how she is a little bit insane, but like, I don't know. She seemed more normal. Like she seemed like a person like who you would run into who is just like a super fan. Like she's like a breath away from a Swiftie. Like she's basically in that same circle. So like, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like none of that was unbelievable to me. And I feel like there are other parts of the world that you can explore. Like we did it with Rob Pattinson's Batman. We're doing it right now with the Penguin. Like there's a lot of stories to tell within this one space. So like if you're not getting everything that you need from this movie, like that's kind of okay because there are other movies and other projects that you can kind of world build, discover like what else is going on, how these some of these events are affecting other characters. The ending was interesting because it seemed like they were trying to connect it with Chris Nolan's version of the Batman. I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but I do think that him dying made sense to me. I feel like this was definitely the end
yeah,
of at least Joaquin's version of the character.
yeah,
So I was okay with it. The Joker part, I'm not sure because I don't really know if they were consciously trying to tie it in with
yeah.
anything else. So,
I know, like, I think information came out earlier today about the fact of that scene where he actually gets sliced.
mhm.
Um, when, of course, when Nolan was still involved with Warner Brothers after the first Joker, and then up until recently where he split, um, the information of the sequel had came out, and he had already said to Warner Brothers, like, let's not have this Joker like self-mutilate himself because he thinks it tramples upon the version that we got left behind by Heath Ledger in his last role. And I think that was like, okay, fine, Nolan, you're our main guy. Warner Brothers, we're not gonna rock the boat. We'll acquiesce to that whim, and it makes sense. Like this Keith Ledger's last role. He has that iconic version of the Joker. You don't want to cross threads and pull whatever information, put ever examples from that Joker into a new Joker. I kind of see his point. Like let his version of Joker be his own version of Joker, and so on and so forth. Um, but apparently that got tossed by the wayside by the powers that be, and the issues people are talking about now as far as the movie not being screened. This was reported by Puck, which discussing news kind of said reported it. It was reported by the Puck from like when TIFF was going on. And that's like last month, like September 5th, where the news came out that Warner Brothers did not screen this picture at all. And they also
Hmm.
mentioned like, oh, it's the same formula they had with the first one. The difference being is that was like a $60 million experiment. This is a 200 million sequel, like big box office sequel. Those little experiments of not screening it and keeping a secret, working on the word of mouth was fine. But I do think we've spoken at length for the past couple of years of issues going on at Warner Brothers. I think they thought, oh, we don't have to screen it. Everybody liked the first one. Fuck it, let's roll. We're gonna go to Venice, blah 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 blah. And I think they believe that even if, like we said before, how American audiences don't really like musicals, I think they assume that they could take the hit of people not liking musicals and ride it out and still make back their budget opening week. But as we see now, it's only made back what, 90 million, 85 million?
Already.
Or yeah,
Well,
like
that's worldwide, yeah.
worldwide, yeah, worldwide it's only back like 80 million, which sucks because when Hollywood Reporter and all of them were talking about the Marvels and Nina Acosta and how she didn't go to the screening because she went attended her birthday with family, that movie made 110 million and they were calling that movie a flop.
Mm.
And I see the industry is really hand-holding DC Todd Phillips like kind of like, oh, you're okay, Todd. It doesn't really matter. Like, no, you called Nina first time director giving a movie, giving a sequel to, a basically a tentpole franchise from Marvel. That movie made 10 million opening. Oh, yeah, 100 million opening week. Todd's only made eight global, but that one's a flop and this one is it. I do think there's an issue with how we report these movies in regards to not only male directors and women directors, but also that movie is also directed by a black woman. So that's a double whammy right there of misinterpretation and the reporting, I view, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, I think, well, all the news that I've been seeing now is just how like it's not doing well because of the critics' reviews and it's making barely any money. It's probably not going to make his budget back, or if it does, it's just like just nearly going to, but that's not a profit, obviously. So it's not doing well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the general feelings. I mean, from critics who are just like on YouTube, just making videos about whatever, to like actual critics who are like going to these festivals and seeing like the stuff firsthand, it's just not good, kind of all the way down the line. And I don't think it warrants all of that negativity, but I do think when it comes to, and especially when it comes to anything with Warner Brothers, there's always going to just be something because they don't know how to run things over there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be something. They've ruined House of the Dragon season two. They've done so much damage, and I'm so
Like,
tired of them. I'm tired. And like I don't want them to make decisions. Like I just want them to stop. But yeah, I feel like the whole I think they were also kind of riding high on their own supply. Like they really thought that like, well, Joker one did so good that like we can just kind of do whatever and like it'll be fine. And it did not work out that way.
no, it did
And again,
not.
it also comes down to like not marketing it correctly. I think that was also a big
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm not Todd Phillips' biggest fan. I mentioned about
we
in
know.
the first movie, getting high on his own supply. Always like, oh, we invented this new angle to, showcase the story. It was a motherfucking Dutch angle. And like I thought he was really egotistical for championing like he just invented a new, cinematic technique. No, my dude, you're just tilting the camera in a direction. It's not this mind-blowing thing. And I also feel like I kind of expected the reaction for this movie to be this way when he did an interview and they asked, oh, how would this Joker fit in Robert Pattinson's version of the movie? And he was like, oh, this Joker would be in awe of Robert Pattinson's Batman's alpha maleness. And I was like, oh, you really don't understand the character you've wrote. So once I realized you don't understand the character, I realized that's why the impetus of making this a musical worked in his head, and he was prepared for the reaction that audiences would give. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I think it was fine,
yeah,
but I don't know. It's not what other people, my feelings are not as strong as other people's, and I don't even agree with a lot of the other criticisms necessarily. So I think when we go to like, what was the point of making this? I think there's no point in even asking the question because there's so many movies that are coming out that have come out. Like, did we need a Barbie movie? No, but we got one.
yeah.
So it's just like, you can only say that until it doesn't work, right? It's like, so what's the point of making this? But if it works, then like, okay, well, I guess there was a point because we liked it. And if it doesn't, then it's like, what's the point of making this movie? It's just like movies are gonna be made. So you can either watch them or not. Like it's really, you don't have to engage if you don't want
I
to.
mean, it's
But if
clear.
you are gonna engage, at least I don't know, at least I don't know what my critique to those other critiques are, other than maybe it's just like a difference of opinion. Like
Yeah.
we just have different opinions.
I mean, yeah, it's clear this movie was out just to make print more money, like the first one. So, but yeah. Um,
Yeah. So then again, what was the point of that movie? If we're gonna ask that question. Anyways, just watch The Penguin. You'll have so much more fun if
yeah.
that's how you feel. Okay, so let's talk about what we have been watching this week.
I personally been watching a movie called How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. Um, it's a Thai comedy slash drama. Not finished with it yet. Kind of started it today and then had to stop it while to record. Um, but it's kind of about a young man who goes to live with his grandma. It's kind of like wants to be in that uh content creator space, which we know for personal experience is really hard to do. But he's like basically taking care of her just to make money off of her. Um, and yeah, it's like I guess the grandmother had like stomach cancer, and yeah, he's just trying to mooch off his grandmother to make money off her until she dies. So once, hopefully, I can continue finishing the rest of it. But yeah, I'm like like if I like looking at other international foreign films, with ideas that we probably don't, or not ideas, but stuff we really don't see stateside. So.
Yeah, so I've been watching uh Heartstopper. Well, I finished watching it. I watched season three,
Mm,
and it was like really heavy. And I feel like the more these seasons continue, the heavier it's gonna be. But I do think it's like so well done, and like they really make you care for like the cast of characters, and it's a very realistic portrayal of like being a teenager and like understanding your sexuality, but also your mental health. And it gets really deep into like mental health issues this season. And yeah, there's just like a really there's a lot there to like offer up. Like it's not, I think the first season's kind of kept it pretty safe and it was kind of giving a little school special. But I think that like as the seasons have continued, it's become more mature as the actors have also grown up and delved into more serious topics. And I think that the way that they're handled makes a lot of sense and is like very beneficial to any young person who's like going through the same thing. So I'm happy that this show exists and that it's like something that young people could watch and like maybe feel more visible, which is really cool.
mm,
And then for my movie club, I watched Origin by Ava DuVernay. It was good. Like it wasn't what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be, centered around Black trauma, and I was not interested in seeing that. But I think Ava did something really interesting where she was connecting different um, people who had been oppressed at a certain points in history and globally, like all over the world. And the overall message I thought was really good. I thought, who was the actress in? I think it's Anjanae Ellis. Let me look that up. I think that's who it is, though. But she did, the main actress did great. John Berthal is in it, and he's great. Love him. Um, and also Niecy Nash, like a whole bunch of great actors are in it. But like, I thought it was pretty good. Like the way they were able to, yeah, it's Anjanae Ellis Taylor. So, but the way that they were able to like weave together different things throughout history and like present an idea that, yes, has something to do with Black people, but is more just about like this weird class system systems that we have in society that like want one group to be superior and want another group to be inferior, and how that has rippled effects through history and how that's still affecting us now. And she presented it in a really interesting way. It's almost like a history lesson, but like in a movie. And it's based on a true story of like this woman who has suffered so much personal tragedy and still like did a lot of research and wrote this book. So it's good. It's too long, but I thought overall it was a pretty decent movie. I know she was getting a lot of critical praise for it when it was coming out last year. Um, Unfortunately, this movie did not appear in any like of the mainstream things that many people were saying, but I did know about it and I did watch it and I thought it was pretty decent. So,
So, but so before we go though, serious message, hope everybody in Florida stays safe. I have friends there. I'm from Miami myself. I still have family who lives there. Just hope everybody stays safe. A lot of people in Tampa is dealing with the fallout of the last hurricane that ended a couple weeks ago. Now Milton is kind of like a Cat 5, which is like 108 miles per hour. And it's like gonna cut right through Central Florida from like Tampa, like Orlando, all that stuff. So if you're in Florida and you're a listener, I just want you guys to stay safe, So yeah.
yeah, definitely. Because my grandparents live there too. Like, oh. Yeah, so stay safe and take care of yourselves and make sure you check in with other people in your neighborhood and your friends and stuff, like just to make sure that they're okay. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it from us this week. We hope that you're all doing well and taking care of yourselves. Make sure to check out all of our social media, support us if you can, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.
Au revoir.